If you could just take a moment and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your library background.
Sure. I got my master in science in library and information science from Simmons College in Boston, and then I started out actually in dental and medical libraries. Um, I worked in Boston at what was the Forsyth Dental Center, and then I came back to New Jersey and was archival assistant at the UMD&J Smith Library History and Medicine Room. That's actually part of Rutgers now. I worked in Media Center at Gibbs School, and then actually then went back to UND&J at their foundation, where I did research and database management. I ended up here in Plainfield in 2008, and I started part-time as a part-time grant worker in the local history department, and then part-time also in the information technology department. And so I've been doing this for about 20 years.
What was one of the first projects you looked into getting done
Okay.
under your regime?
One of the first ones that we began with IDI was our city directories, which you did. And that was actual microfilming of the books themselves and then digitizing that. And then you also did our digitization of our early newspaper microfilm. And all of that was done with grants. We wrote Union County grants and also historical commission grants, special project grants to have that work done. We really needed to demonstrate the worth of these projects and why we chose them and why they were important. And we also needed to find a balance between the historical content that we wanted to provide, our own technical understanding, and our ability to sustain the technology. One of the things we needed to do was to maintain statistics on our access and our use of these things. So right away, that's something that we always done. My predecessor did that. We've always kept track of our use for our own reporting, but also for grant reporting. And then another thing we needed to do was not just rely on one organization for the funding. It's really important to ask multiple funders.
When you say usage, is that internal or like analytics, tracking your community engagement?
Once we do have these things available online, then we can use sort of we use Google Analytics for our website. You all provide statistics for us on access, and funders want to know all of that.
So initially for these scanning projects, is it more you find for preservation or is it the digital access?
It's like 100% for digital access. That is to say that by digitizing these things and then making that information available in that format, we use our actual items less.
What were some of the reasons you chose IDI to be your preferred imaging vendor for some of these larger projects?
Initially, I honestly can't speak to why they chose you initially. So I will talk to when I had something to do with it. And that is because we worked with you before, and you did a great job. Our previous projects. So right now we're working with you to have our collection of Plainfield police logs and tax ledgers digitized. So let me say that. We went with you because you had handled our city directories and our newspaper microfilm. You provided a content management system with a search capability. You stored this on your website that we could link to, so it allowed us to access that material without having to store it all on our servers. And in turn, you are responsible for that, and you are backing those things up. You are taking care of that, which is excellent. Plus, you have excellent customer service. There are certain occasions, and really not a lot of occasions, but in the past where maybe there was a page missing from a city directory or something, your turnaround time to fix that is, it's practically overnight. And there are so many, there are other organizations where really, you have to submit a ticket and then you have to wait and you don't know what's going on. You offer you offer a content management system with a search, and that's really important right now. A lot of organizations actually don't have that. We didn't back then. We had, when we had our initial projects of when the blueprint started and the photographs and the postcards, there wasn't anything available.
Now, yeah, digging into the digital archive that you've built up now, have you seen this help your community engagement, and do you use it for promoting events or anything in that realm?
Oh, sure. So one thing, when we organized our project, we began with the least accessible visual materials. And I think a lot of people do that. So the glass plates and the film negatives. And I think by starting with visual materials like photographs and maps and postcards, it's easy to sort of capture your audience. You can use those images, particularly now. We have platforms on social media, a lot of news. We use the Tap Into news site, and there's always an opportunity to add an image. So a photograph or a postcard or something like that, and having that digitized and at your fingertips makes it so easy to do. Last year, Plainfield celebrated its 150th anniversary, and the library was able to easily provide, over 100 images of photographs and postcards. They used it in their displays and in films. They used it on banners in the street. We always use it to promote our events. If we wanted to put, for example, a page in a city directory on display, we don't have to use the actual directory. And not only that, but we can then, blow that up. We can zoom in on that. We can use it in physical exhibits, and we can use it on our virtual exhibits.
In light of COVID-19, have you noticed an increase in need and desire for more digital resources to be made available?
Oh, yes, absolutely. The local history department has not yet opened for in-person access to our collections. So we try to make everything as much as we can available on our website for our researchers' use.
Historically, you've had a lot of success in finding funding for these big projects. So I wonder if you could share a technique or some kind of strategy that you use to obtain these grants.
Yeah. So I don't have anything special that I do. You want to look for your local funders. So any local foundations. You want to look to your county funders. So the Union County Office of Cultural and Heritage Affairs. Other counties have similar organizations. There's state funders like the New Jersey Historical Commission, who help larger organizations. Now, smaller organizations really have to focus at the county level. When you hear a project being funded, see who funded it, and then see if that can apply to you. There's also crowdfunding and community fundraising. On our webpage, we have a place where people can see, what their donation will bring to them. So $20 will bring, the purchase of a box, or we'll get this many photos digitized, or something like that. Everybody knows about the foundation directory, so they have an online service. If you're really looking for funding and you want to get into a lot of funders, definitely go that way. Particularly now, I think we can all make a very good argument that digitization will allow us to continue operating. So keep that in mind. Not all funders only give in the state and where they're located, so don't write off a funder or a foundation because they're not in New Jersey or they're not in your county. I definitely recommend asking your IT department with help. I've asked ours for help in terms of how do we store this information? Is it safe? How do we do our backups? When do we do our backups? and I've asked them to explain it to me in terms that aren't technical so that I can explain that in a grant.
How have you liked working with our platform, DigiFind It, for searching through your archives?
We like it. We like it. I mean, obviously, we wouldn't have come back. I think it's a nice search. We again, the items that we have with you are really, most of them are text based, so it allows for that full text searching, which we like. We're real happy with it.
Is there any just general advice or insight you can provide for your library peers that are now beginning to investigate digitization for their library and web hosting their archive?
I think you should know your collection and your audience, and so I don't want to go back to grant writing, but definitely involve the people who work with the materials in your grant writing. I think the best thing I can say is if you see a website or a system you like, find out about that, and that's a good starting point.